Hello. Oh gosh. Hello everyone. So my name's Alex, and I love the Moog DFAM. I'm here to profess my love for it and explain why I love it and how it can work with the Mother 32 and this whole concept of live jamming. You all know about this because that's why we come to Synthfest, is that we love the fact that there are these amazing devices that we can just explore and make music with in a real-time fashion. I love computers, I still use computers. Computers can do things that hardware really can't do, but there's something to be said for the immediacy, the joy of just playing, experimenting music. You know, we all spend a lot of time on computers, especially during our jobs, so the fact that you can come home and just lose yourself in a device is hugely gratifying. And we're seeing, not just from Moog, so many companies totally respect this and know this, and they're starting to make the things that, with the best will in the world, they should probably have made in the early 90s, but there was a sort of fallow period. We're getting back to it now, and a lot of these things are analog, because analog's cool. That's why. So, and analog is cool, digital's really cool as well. And, but there's just such an immediacy, a joy in playing with analog gear. It's just, you know, the knobs are determining what happens, and if something's not sounding right, there's probably one knob that I can just reach to instantly and touch, and I can make the thing do the thing I want it to do. So you learn muscle memory, and you can learn to be very fast, and you can get so fast, I'm not saying I'm this fast, but you can get so fast that you can really make music in real time. So it's this idea that as a performer, you might be able to go on stage and you haven't pre-prepared a set. Like, I don't actually know what's going to happen, but I'm going to play for an hour and I'm going to make music, and you're all going to dance, damn it. And so it's trying to make your life easy so that that's possible, and it is possible. It's easier and harder depending on what gear you give, how much you give yourself to do, and less is more. I think that definitely you can have a banging old time with just a 909 and a 303 and maybe some delay and a mixer, so you can do some weird dubby stuff. So let's all bear that in mind when we're considering buying every single toy that is available. You don't need a lot, you just need some cool stuff. And so this brings us to Mother and the drummer from another mother. So basically, these are two devices made by Moog. Moog is a small synthesizer company based in Asheville, North Carolina, that's been producing gear under different guises. The company of Moog, as it is now, has its roots in 2001 or 2000, when Bob Moog reacquired his name and was able to convert his company Big Briar into Moog Music Incorporated, who make these devices. And these things have the circuits from yesteryear in them. They've got the oscillators descended from the concept of the design of the Mini Moog, the Moog ladder filter, and they put it in this modern way. This doesn't look quite like a Mini Moog. It's sort of smaller and more compact, and it's semi-modular, and it's designed to work in this ecosystem of fun jamming tools. And so the Mother's one thing, it's a voice, and we can sequence the voice, and I'll show you how the sequencer works, and I'll show you kind of how it's, what might seem kind of somewhat idiosyncratic, I think, is actually really fun, because I recognize that things like the 303, if any of you have ever, hands up anyone who's programmed a 303 here. No one? Yes, some hands. Did you enjoy it? You kind of, one person shook their head, the other was like, yeah, and I think that says everything that we need to know, is programming a 303 is a confusing experience where you're like, I don't really know what's happening, but I'm enjoying it. I don't know how I arrived at this melody, but I like it. It's that thing. And because the 303 is weird as hell, I think you have to program the gates as one pass and then the pitch as another pass. It's really nuts. I bring that up to say that I don't think the Mother 32 is half as weird as the 303, but there's a bit of an equivalent. It's a bit of a weird sequencer, and when you first go to a Mother 32, you might not necessarily have a good time, but I'm here to tell you that you will have a good time, because if you go into the manual, there's a really good tutorial, and if you just follow that tutorial in the manual, you will know how the sequencer works. And half of what makes it fun is not being totally aware of it and just being able to just jam and just try things out. Because as we all know, the interface has a huge bearing on what you produce. if you have a keyboard, you make certain types of melodies. You start to learn patterns that your hands go to and do, and that then defines what you make. What's so wonderful about these devices is that they're weird, and things like the DFAM is using dials to control pitch, and there's no quantization. So I can easily make things that are not tuned to the equally tempered scale. And that's exciting because it means that we have to push our boundaries and we have to do things that are unusual, or that are new musically to us. And so maybe we should start with the DFAM, because the DFAM is a really, really weird device that's unlike any synth that I think has ever been produced. I mean, it's weird because it uses oscillators. It has 2 analog oscillators. It has a 24 decibel low-pass filter, which sounds very familiar. It's got a mixer, and it's got 3 envelope generators, which are all just tapping away in the background with every step. And then it has 2 sequencers, one for pitch here, and one for velocity, volume. And that's it. Like, those elements are quite familiar. If you know about synths, you're like, I know what those things are. But it's a bit of a weird one. The way that they've been smushed together is unusual. And actually, you cannot do what a DFAM does on a subtractive standard analog synthesizer. You can't. Like, it's not possible. It's just, the DFAM, I don't know this, but I suspect, was invented on a modular synthesizer first, and it's actually basically a modular synth patch turned into a device. And I tried to rebuild a DFAM on my modular synthesizer, and what's interesting is I got DFAM-ish things, but I didn't get a DFAM, because it makes you realize part of what makes a synth is the way that all of the knobs and ranges have been carefully tuned and calibrated, and that the voices are designed to work together and the levels of things are right. Anyway, so it is a basic subtractive synth, but it works in a different way. It's patched in a different way. And what it makes is just like this kind of crazy hybrid of drums and bass. It's a really strange device, and it's very fun for jam. So what I just did was I just hit play on the Mother, and the DFAM starts working. And that's because I'm using the Mother's assignable output here, which is an output that you can change the function of. And I had to check the manual because there's a little keystroke you have to do. And I can turn the assignable output into a clock that will run my DFAM. And in turn, I could then clock the Mother, and then my Mother and my DFAM will be clocked to something else, like a traditional drum machine. Despite the fact that the DFAM is kind of drummy, I actually really like using a real quote-unquote drum machine alongside it, because you can then just use the traditional drum machine to do like the kick, something fundamental, and use the DFAM for basically everything else. And I think if you had just a nice kick sound, a DFAM, and a stereo ping pong delay, you can play a show. So this is just the DFAM. I'm not doing anything with the Mother at all. Take that out of context, it's quite weird. My mother's not involved in this, and my grandmother's over there, I've got 3. So you're hearing a Moog oscillator, which is a triangle. We also have a buzzy saw, and we've got this filter. So it's making this kind of cool bass tone. It sounds not like a drum machine. That's not what a drum machine does. But I've got noise, and I can use that noise and send it into the filter. And I could reduce the decay of every note. And now it's starting to sound a bit more like a drum. And then I've also got, you remember I said I've got 3 envelope generators. There's one here that controls the oscillator, there's one here that controls the filter, and there's one here that controls the volume. And I can apply them to things. Suddenly I can start to make kind of analog toms. And I've got like 2 notes. There's is actually like a rhythm here. How is this happening? And if you maybe can't see, these little tiny knobs here, these two are turned up, the rest are turned down. And so as I turn up the knobs, that's how I'm going to put notes into the sequence. And I realized that I don't have to just turn them up. It's not binary. I can have them a little bit. I can have them up a little bit, and I can create little ghost notes. I can fade in the other oscillator. FM the oscillators against each other, and I can sync the oscillators so I can get all kinds of weird tones as well. So is that like a bass line, or is that a drum? What is that? I don't really have a name for it. And I can change the pitch, and I can make the pitch affect both oscillators, so I can start to play them. And I can change the fundamental frequency. Go when I'm messing around with this. I'm just like, I could go in this sort of direction. Interesting. So there's something I want to show you, which is, because the DFAM, I'm exploring, I'm trying different things, but I think this is one of those devices that really benefits from patch memory. And so what I have here, these are the little cards that come with a DFAM when you buy one. And so what this is doing is it's actually just showing me, if I just put all the knobs to match these settings, I'm going to get a particular sound. I want to show you this one. Excuse me. That's just like that. So there are little like orange dots on here. What I have to do is just match everything. So if I put all of these things into these positions, you're going to get a sound. Talk amongst yourselves, folks, while I do this. God, this is entertaining. I do this on stage as well. If you're performing in front of thousands of people, you just ask them all to just keep dancing while I do this. It's really great. You don't do this, but my point is, I think you would do this intuitively and slowly over time as part of a performance, pushing it slowly into certain positions. And I need two of these little wires. Because one thing, I mentioned before that these two sequences are called pitch and velocity, but that's pigeonholing them, because their sequences are effectively just like automation. A sequencer is just saying, I want a voltage to be a certain voltage at a certain time. But these sequences are here. They're outputs. So I can actually use the sequences to control other functions on the synth. And that's what's amazing about the DFAM, is the sort of malleability per step. Because on a DFAM, you can have things where on one step it's doing like a kick, but on another it's doing a snare, a bit like this. So this patch is called kick bass snare, and it literally is that. It's get it. What have I done So what this patch is, it's literally using the little sequences. So you can't see here very well, but I'll tell you that these two are set, these pitch sort of sequences are set to 0, the lowest note. But on here, where you hear the snare, they're set to the highest. And so this is basically turning, if it's at its lowest, then it's going to create a bass note. And if it's its highest, it's going to create noise. Because we've sent the pitch to control the level of noise, basically. And the velocity is just turning the notes on and off so that we can vary whether we hear them or not and create a rhythm. And then actually what's cool about this patch is if these are all set to their lowest note, but if I start to bring them up, you start to get like tuned information. And maybe I have very lazy standards in music, but I could groove to this. Like, give me a couple of beers and I'm anyone's. And I would dance to this, and it's just this idea that we can start like breaking the patch. We can have more snares as well. Sorry. Change the rhythm. By turning this all the way to the top, I create a snare. And I can add more feel. I can have notes that are lower and higher in volume. Ooh. Do-do. Kind of see it's just a weird device, like it's both a drummer and it's a drummer from another mother, but it's sort of a whole system unto itself. And as I say, if you combine that with other things, it gets very fun. So with that in mind, let's introduce you to my mother. And so the mother is a voice. By which I mean it's a synth voice. So that's okay, there's our drums. So the mother is a synthesizer, and it's just like this, but the mother is designed for more tuned information. So on this thing, we have a little keyboard, and these are white notes. These are the black notes. And I can move up and down the scale like this. And so you've got this one huge voice. I was using lots of pulse width modulation because Nick Batt is in the building. So, and just a beautiful kind of like sweet, fat Moog voice, basically. And we have an envelope generator, a bit like in the DFAMs, but we do have control over the attack and decay portion. In the DFAM, you only control the decay portion. So you can get these nice little bass lines, and it therefore is like the perfect accompaniment to something like the DFAM, because we've got a sequencer on here. So if I hit, the way this works, and again, I said it's slightly idiosyncratic, so I might blaze through this, but I hope you'll get the kind of fun aspect of it. If I go shift, reset accent, and pattern bank, then it will clear the sequence, very straightforward. But you just remember like a little L shape. I always remember in my mind's eye, it's like a little L. There's like a mnemonic for clearing. And then here is, it says it rec in little brackets. And that means that if it's in brackets, there's a button called shift, which is in brackets. I go shift and rec. Now it's ready to record. And I can move up and down the keyboard with this little button. I can just dab in the notes I want to have. Like this. And then we're off to the races. So that's one thing. So I've made a sequence, but I'm playing a show, everyone's supposed to be dancing. And so then what I want to do is interact with the sequencer, but I don't want to stop the sequence, so I want to keep it going. Got to keep the crowd, keep them interested. And so on the sequencer, you can do this. You can actually mess with it whilst it's playing. So if I just go back to it, there's more brackets here. This one says KB, this one says step. And that means that if I hold Shift and KB, then I can play this like a keyboard, but I press Shift and step. Now I can edit the sequence and work in a completely different way. So it's showing me, these are my notes in my sequence. And I can turn them on and off. And maybe I'd like it to be a shorter sequence. So if I come over here, I can go, up here you can't see this, but it says 1 to 8, 9 to 16, 17 to 24, and 25 to 32, because it's got 32 steps, hence it's called a Mother 32. And if I go steps 1 to 8 and set end 5, I now set the end of the sequence to be a 5-stepper, like this. So nice short sequence. And then what I can do is I hold Shift, go into the notes. That's nice. So I can jump into the sequence, and jump back out, and now I see the sequence again. I can Shift, jump into that. And so what I'm doing is I'm editing that one note. I'm actually in edit mode, but I'm using it as a performance. See? So it's like, it's really weird. I don't know if they meant for me to do that, but I'm like, editing the sequence is quite fun, because I can basically just adjust the sequence in real time and make like a larger performance. So I'm not just setting and forgetting, I'm actually using editing as a part of the performance. But we can do more than just change the pitch of notes. You can actually do quite a lot in the little Mother sequencer. Every note can have tons of information in it. You can have different gate lengths for the notes. So if I, for example, go over here and change the gate length, I have to have sustain on, which means that the note has a sustain component. It's not just going to complete its full cycle. You hear there's a longer note there, mixed in with the shorter ones. We can also do ratchets, which makes everyone very happy. I do that by holding Shift and pushing glide, turning glide. Very intuitive. But it's not hard, you learn it. So you hear every note now is going to have up to like 4 sort of notes within it, a trill, effectively. So ratcheting. We can also have glide. If I have to come out of here and adjust. That's interesting. That's a mistake, but it's actually a really cool mistake. I've got the assign output in the wrong mode. So the assign output can be done so that it's just producing a steady clock, which is running at the Mother's clock rate. If that makes sense. So whenever the Mother runs, it's making a constant stream, and I can have notes on and off, and that stream stays constant. So it means that the DFAM always continues to play at the correct and non-stop rate. But what I've actually done is I've got it so that it's not output, it's like outputting it, it's stopping and starting. I think it's on the mode where it will output just the gate. Whenever the Mother is making a gate, it's outputting, which means the DFAM is stopping and starting. Well, that's actually quite cool. And it's kind of an example of the fun of analog wonk. And then playing with music and experimentally playing with the devices can be the performance in and of itself. We know them well enough. We know the places that we can take them, the things that we can do. And the idiosyncrasies of these devices can often be a source of inspiration and fun. So that's why I like boxes like this that are fun to play with, but I also really like computers. That's it. Thank you. Cheers.